Hi, my name is Prateek. I'm a singer-songwriter. As my manager, Dhruv. How are you guys doing? Has everybody had lunch? Yes? Oh my God, that means you're terribly sleepy. Is everybody sleepy? There's 7 people on the phone, so... Sure? You're alive? Awake? So normally what happens is that someone like me, who by pure luck and happenstance gets to be on stage with someone like him, who by sheer effort and talent has made his way all this way here. And I try to sound eloquent by asking questions, and he will give some very pertinent answers. And then there is a Q&A at the end of it, right? Am I remotely speaking the truth? Come on, you guys said you're not sleepy. Hello? Okay. So why don't we change that this time a little bit? We will start with 2 questions from you guys, and then I have a list of questions that I want to ask him. And before we do that, there's one question I'm dying to ask him. On a scale of 1 to before going on stage for a show, how nervous are you right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Well, now that you ask me,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe like a 7, I want to say.
You're 7 right now?
I'm
Oh my
always a
God.
little nervous on stage. So,
Wow,
but,
you guys
but
are
I don't let it show,
Yeah?
as you can see, right?
Does
I
he
don't
look
know.
nervous?
Okay,
Does he
then there you
sound
go.
nervous?
Then it doesn't matter.
There you go. So that's the next profession, is perhaps acting along with singing. Anybody has a question? Yes? No? Maybe? Too early? Okay, cool. So, do you feel... Sure? No question, right? Okay, cool. So I have a few questions that I wrote down. First time we met, which was maybe 5, 6 years ago, right? Um, uh, when we started talking, you at that time had said to me that, man, I actually don't want to be a performer. I want to be a songwriter for other people. And I'm very happy with just creating the music and somebody going ahead and performing it on stage. In fact, if I'm remembering right, you actually were quite anti being famous, or you didn't want to be on stage and perform. Is that still the case today? And if not, then what's changed?
In some sense, yes. I mean, I think at the core of everything, I'm primarily a singer-songwriter. Not even a singer, actually, a songwriter for the most part. That's why I started doing this. I started kind of just writing songs in my room and making, bad demo recordings of them and just being kind of happy with that. And then touring just happened, It was kind of necessary. It's a really important tool, obviously, especially if you're putting out your own music, it's probably the best way to really put your music out there, like promote a record. And it's also something that makes you a decent amount of money. So I started doing it. I didn't like it in the beginning because, especially back then, I was especially introverted and socially anxious. I still am a little bit, but I don't let it show. But then I got used to it eventually. I don't remember the anti-famous thing. I never really thought about it. When I started doing this, I had really low expectations from everything. I was like, I want to make music and I just want to make ends meet. I just want to be able to sustain this thing for the next. And if that happens, then I'll continue doing it. Otherwise I'm going to quit. That was my plan when I started doing this. But yeah, I'm a studio musician at heart. I still love doing that the most. That's what really drives me, motivates me. That's my favorite time of the year, when I'm by myself writing songs, and then when I'm in the studio, like producing my records and putting all of it together. That's my favorite time.
So if you had an option, would you not, and you could make ends meet by being a pure studio musician, would you not tour at all?
I've started liking touring now. Okay. Yeah, I do really enjoy it now. So
any particular reason why?
I think it's like touring is tough. You have to get, especially as the scales grow and the pressure grows and your schedule grows. It's tough, but it's really rewarding, you know. And the and by rewarding I mean like literally being on stage and there's these moments that happen every now and then. It's not even that much. Every now and then there'll be a moment which will be super satisfying on stage, and it's kind of worth it. All the shit you have to deal with, basically.
Okay, I should be going into question number 6 right there and then, but I won't. You mentioned that you're primarily a studio musician and your favorite time of the year is to be in the studio and be by yourself. And you have, for the earlier part of your career, been fairly a solitary composer. And in the last album, The Way That Lovers Do, I believe you spent a lot of time in LA with a producer or multiple producers. So did that change your process in any way? And how's that different from writing by yourself?
No, I didn't actually write with anybody else for this record. I have started doing a lot of sessions now.
What does that mean, if you can just
So
explain?
I do a lot of writing sessions in general, and especially there's a big songwriting culture in America. So a lot of people are just songwriters, like what you were asking me earlier. I kind of wanted to do that in the beginning because you just go and you work with other artists or other producers and you write songs for yourself or other people. Sometimes there's 4 people in a room just writing one song, and they just do that every single day, and that's what I love doing, writing songs. But I also realized the more I did those sessions that I like writing by myself better. So I still do them sometimes because every now and then you do get a nice song, and it's also fun. It also kind of opens up your brain to different writing processes and just gets you out of your comfort zone. But this record, actually, I wrote everything myself. Like, I ended up picking all the songs I picked for the record were all things I wrote myself. I did work with a producer, though, in Seattle, very closely. So after all the songs were written, we produced everything together in his studio over a span of about 2 months. But that's something I've done for the last record also.
Okay. So this was a person who did more, let's say, technical producing for you for the record as opposed to being a creative sounding board, or was he a creative sounding board as well?
Both things, yeah.
Okay.
Mostly both of the things. Like a lot of creative inputs. And by production, I mean everything after the songwriting.
Right.
So the songwriting would be like the melody and the words and kind of like the basic structure of the song. And then all the instruments kind of added on top, was very collaborative.
So before I ask the next question, just bear in mind the lovely interaction we just had with a group of people, right? You know, the people we just met, just right now in the coffee shop. We met a really nice group of people.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind before answering this question.
Okay.
Label or no label? We just met our label. That's why. And they were very nice. So as a musician, there was one of the first videos of yours that I saw was, I think it was Raat Razi, which was shot in a room and it did really well on YouTube. Am I right? Am I right? So at that time, there was no label, or at least there was no Elektra and any big label that you were signed to. As a person who's been through this journey and reached where you've reached so far, and which I hope is just the start, do you think, how important is it to have a label or not to have a label?
I think it keeps changing with the time, first of all. I think 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, it was pretty much essential. I don't think you could have done anything, really. As distribution channels of music opened up because of the internet, that was a big game changer. Now promotion is all pretty much digital. It's a big game changer. So it's changing. But labels are also changing in terms of their structures and how they function because of that. So that interaction is hard to predict. And then the third factor is your own context. What do you want? What do you like doing? How do you like working? Certain people, I think, will work with labels really well. Certain people don't. So it's kind of like an interplay of that. It's a complicated question to answer. Label or no label, is again, it's a trade-off. I think it's a trade-off. I think there's a lot of big advantages, and it will really depend on the deal you get, honestly, because if it's a really bad deal, then there's probably almost no advantages. If it's a good deal, then you get a really good team that you're working with. You get a lot of, there's a lot of behind the stuff, admin stuff that happens with labels that you are usually doing yourself or not doing at all when you're
True.
independent. And that seems like a small thing, but all those little things add up, and it's a huge logistical nightmare that's off your plate once a label and a publisher, like any big institution gets involved. It was a game changer for me. Like I don't like doing logistics,
Fair enough.
and even though I was doing it with the help of my managers and stuff, back then we weren't working together. It's still a lot of coordination. It's annoying. So that really cleared up my head. Of course, you get a lot of money. So, I mean,
Yeah, that usually is a game changer. They paid me so much.
but then there's a lot of restrictions because, a lot of times in terms of releases and stuff, it's a collaborative thing, right? So timelines have to be agreed upon. Depending on your relationship with your label, the creative aspect sometimes can be collaborative. So it's a bit of a push and pull there. So all those things are really up to you and your relationship with them.
So it boils down to the people, literally, and which label.
That's a big factor.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
big
huge
factor.
I think.
I mean, everything in most things in life, I think relationships are pretty key in general, right? I mean, I think we're all humans doing this stuff. So these are all big names, like labels and I mean, it's all made up of people. So anything you can make anything happen or not happen based on that. Honestly, at the end of the day.
It's almost a good segue into we're just ordinary people, but let's not do that. With me singing it especially. I think the idea of label or management, the question would be similar, like how important or what, in a more specific way, what is management supposed to do and what does it end up doing for you? And how in control are you of the business decisions that are being taken on your behalf? Or
I think you can answer that question better. Right?
I was hoping you would say that.
I would make I would differentiate between managers and labels. I think managers are pretty essential, but I might be biased because I've never not been with a manager. Like literally, when I started doing this because I found a manager who wanted to work with me, and I wanted to work with him, and then we just started doing it. And I might have not even done it if I didn't have somebody else. And if it's the right manager, then it's really great. And it's just like any partnership, right? I mean, doing stuff alone is a bit more daunting than having somebody do it. But I think especially for, a creative person in general, I wouldn't even just limit it to musicians. Having a manager is a huge, huge, huge plus. But, it's also important for it to be the right manager.
But also, I mean, I'd like you to voice in an affirmative way what I'm about to say, that you may have a great manager and a great relationship, but you still must be fully aware of what financial transactions are happening on your behalf and read your contracts. I mean, I hope that has been the case as far as, us working with you goes, that you're aware of what's going on and it's not in some silo.
I mean, I can only speak for how I have done it, and that might not be the best way.
Whole idea.
Yeah. But the way I kind of navigate that is, I mean, ultimately it boils down to delegation, right, in some sense. And in the beginning, I'd be cautious. If you're just starting to work with a manager, I feel like when I started working with my first manager, I was more micromanaging, and then later on I started to let go. The more trust there was, and the more systems you build in, the point of that is so that you can eventually do less and less of that, So that's what I would say. But that being said, yeah, I'm pretty involved in the sense I have a broad idea of everything's going on,
Yeah, you must. And if there's any piece of advice I can
I don't
give.
know. I've
Yeah.
heard that like people sometimes just completely.
Yeah, I
there's
don't. I
artists
don't think
who,
that's good. I don't think that's good. It's great if somebody lets you do whatever you want, and as human beings, to have no answerability is always good. But as somebody who runs a management firm, for anybody who's an artist here, please read your contracts. Please know what you're signing. If you don't understand it, continuously keep telling them to tell it to you in a way that you understand. Don't trust anybody completely without knowing what you're doing, because I might not see something that you do.
Yeah, it's also about that. It's
Yeah.
also not about trust in the sense that somebody will take you for a ride, but
Yeah,
also
yeah, yeah.
because
Just miss
people
something.
ultimately like you know your career, yourself, your needs, your wants, all of that the best. So the more involved you are, of course, you can really pinpoint stuff that you don't like and find quirks that maybe is a deal breaker for you and is going to bug you later on, catch that early on.
So you mentioned about social anxiety, right? And as things started churning and becoming bigger and bigger, did it have a impact on your mental health? And did you seek support in terms of therapy? And do you think that's that's a reality of when you suddenly become really people recognize you on the street?
Yeah, I think in the beginning, it was almost helpful for my mental health in a way because my social anxiety weirdly got a little better the more I did this because it was also just kind of practice, right? I mean, after shows, just doing everything you're forced to do, interacting with people, I kind of got better at it. Also, once you get, having my first little bout of success gave me a lot of confidence. So that helped. But then later on, it started to play on my, like what you're talking about also in terms of dealing with the kind of ups and downs of touring and just, I guess success, just, not knowing how to handle it, like all the attention that you get. It's very up and down. It's not just that, it's not there all the time, right? So you're suddenly on a high and then suddenly like for a month there's nothing going on sometimes, so you're on a low. So there's a lot of, managing your expectations. Yeah, therapy has been helpful for me. I mean, not just, and it's just one of the tools. I think for mental health, I also did a lot of research on my own. And just in terms of keeping your physical health in a certain condition, just reading and informing myself more about it. Setting routines to think was a big game changer, being disciplined about things. That just some of those basics helped. And then, I mean, therapy has been really beneficial as well. I don't want to I don't really know.
So where Prateek lives, in the room where we usually sit and talk, there's this big glass window which has a to-do list on it. And there have been times where I've sneakily taken a photograph and just sent it on the group saying, let's just do this. And that's enough. He's pretty much written down everything we need to do, just follow this. So we have like another 5-6 minutes. So if there are any questions, I'd like to take some. Before we do that, is there any one small cool thing that happens after you become famous that really you get chuffed about? Like, hey man, I don't have to stand in line or something. Something really banal and silly.
I mean, I guess for me, just being really socially anxious, it was nice that somebody else was always starting the conversations. Because I could never do that.
Kind of like today.
So now wherever, any room I walk in, especially if it's like, somebody knows me, it's really easy for me to like talk because somebody else is asking all the questions and I don't mind answering. But so that was a big thing.
That's a good thing. People start conversations. That's your takeaway. Okay.
I'm terrible at starting conversations. Like if I was on your chair, like I would just be quiet the whole time.
It's true. He's right. Every time Prateek and I meet, I have to take 30 seconds and be, okay, how are you, man? And then it ensues. Otherwise, it's like my marriage. It's a lot of silence with a lot of shouting. A lot of silence with a lot of shouting. Anybody wants to ask anything? Yeah, sure. I'm just going to hand you the mic. Here you go.
Hi Prateek, big fan, yeah, big fan of your work. My question is again, so people like Dhruv and your managers and other publications and all these music houses, they do their work. Okay, now I'm asking this question from a marketing perspective. They do their work to market you, but you as a singer, you as an artist, you as a songwriter as well. What's your plan and strategy when you write a song to reach out or to to maximize your potential reach in your audience? Like, what's your personal perspective? Like, how to enhance the reach?
I mean, honestly, I do it. I try to do everything. Like basically, firstly, I keep the creative process and the marketing process separate. So when I'm writing a song and producing the album and stuff, I don't think about the marketability of it at all. Like that's just me internally. I write what I like. Honestly, it's just like my internal barometer. But once the record is done, then you start thinking about the ideas. That's just my process in terms of what to do. And then it's pretty collaborative in the sense I'll talk to my managers, whoever's part of the, I mean, and now as teams are growing, I'll be speaking to like my label here, like Warner over here, Elektra in the US, everybody on Big Bad Wolf's team. There's a bunch of people involved. So we pick whoever the key people are involved in like marketing, we'll speak to all of them, get collaborated, write down a bunch of ideas. But I'm usually kind of the, taking the final call on what we're doing beyond a point. Sometimes it's a push and a pull. Like if I don't want to do something, but Dhruv thinks that you really have to do that, then I'm like, okay, fine. With certain people I'll agree, with certain people I won't. But it's just everything. And then everybody does whatever has to be done, honestly. So if it's like something has to be done tomorrow and nobody's around and I have to do it, I'll still do it, The point is to get it done, basically. That's the idea, I think, right?
Yeah. No, that's pretty true. He's quite happy to set up stage if he has to.
I'm not always happy to do it, but I'll still do it.
Let's go with happy to do it. And anyone else? Okay. Can somebody get a mic to that gentleman? So there's a gentleman in the brown shirt who's getting the mic now, and there's another person right at the back in the white, and that'll be the last one.
Hello. My question is about Indian songwriters who write in English. I wanted to ask you, how do you see the scope of Indian songwriters who write in English, their scope of music in India, and the work that they do abroad? Because you happen to do in both the languages. Thank you.
We had a argument about this once, remember? Like this
Did I
Indian
win?
audience in India.
Did I win the argument?
What?
Did I win the argument?
It's still open, and I don't know. We'll find out.
Then I don't remember it.
We'll know 10 years later. But I mean, India has the second largest English-speaking population in the world,
Oh, yeah, I
after the
remember
US.
this, yeah.
So I personally think it surprises me why there isn't a drastically larger audience for English music in India. Maybe it's a perception thing, maybe it's a time thing. It'll suddenly switch with a certain generation. We'll see. But I think it's just Indian or any other nationality songwriter. Ultimately, English music is a big thing all over the world, and I think like we just grew up knowing the language really well, so shouldn't be hard for us that way if you think about it like that. But yeah, I think there's a big scope in India. Personally, that's what I think. And in the West, again, I think outside of here, whether it's UK, Sweden, LA, Australia, all the big markets in music outside of India, nobody really cares beyond a point where you're from. If you're writing a good song, that's all that matters.
There was yeah.
Hi, hello. My name is Dhruv, and I'm really a big fan. Like, your Cold Mess EP helped me through a lot of dark times. I really want to know, how did you structure that sound? Because that sound is very interesting. That Cold Mess wala piche ka, that arpeggiation and 100 words ka, that, that bass and everything. The whole structure, the videos. What was the creative aspect of what visions you had when you started it from scratch?
The Cold Mess ARP particularly just kind of happened. I mean, because I'd recorded a demo of that song. We were playing it live for like an year and a half. Then I did that song in Nashville with these two producers, and the three of us were in a room, and basically the band came first, and we did all the live stuff like the drums, the guitars, vocals, everything. And then the last week it was just me, Conrad, and Peter, the other two producers, and we were just doing random stuff. And there's just a bunch of analog synthesizers plugged in. There's a piano, there's an EP, there's a drum kit. Everything's plugged in, and you just kind of walk around, try different shit, record a bunch of stuff, take stuff out. That's kind of like how the production process was on that. And the ARP and that part just kind of happened. Like I had this thing where I wanted just like a swell. I wanted this swell to happen of a synth, and then I think Peter just played this ARP, and I was like, oh shit, that's awesome. Let's keep that. And then it just kind of happened in a minute, honestly.
You know, this is, I've noticed this in so many interviews, in panels like this, when somebody asks a specific question, most musicians give an answer which is like, it just kind of happened. Yaar, kuch bata do na yaar. Wo bichara jawab dhoond raha hai, it just kind of happened. But that is, it is pretty true. I've had the pleasure of being around when Indian Ocean has written some songs and they've become huge successes, and it just kind of happens. You know, there is no specific thing sometimes. Thank you all very much. That's the end of our session, and you've been a wonderful
Thank you,
audience.
guys.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon.